Good evening. This is a first video for the fall 2019 class. You probably would find I have like 130 videos on YouTube, but this one's for you. So this video is for both of the 804 classes. I'm going to talk about a couple of things, your first assignment and the syllabus. Just a little introduction. I'm Glenn Tracy. I've been teaching about multicultural or ESL, English Second Language, which is another area of mine. Anybody who wants to get interested in getting an endorsement in English as a second language at the graduate level, it's only 18 credit hours, and you can fold it into a master's degree. So if you know anybody that wants to do that, or if you want to do it, feel free to give me a call. I think my phone number is right on the syllabus, and that's my personal cell number. I don't mess around. I let you communicate directly with me. However, don't call before noon because I sleep late. My whole life revolves around evenings, so I stay up late and I get up late. So, all right. Now, I want to talk about the assignment first. It's much more interesting. Your assignment for this week is an introduction. And you're going to be doing a thing called a cultural map, a personal cultural map. This is something you can use with kids or you can use with adults. It can be adjusted in all kinds of ways. All it requires is that you be able to draw. And you don't have to be a good drawer. You can be a lousy artist. You can scribble things. And if nothing else, you can make symbols and signs and write out things if you want. I put an example in, you have to click, but you'll see the map on the discussion page. And what I want you to do is I've got the requirements of things I want you to talk about, but I want you to draw a map. I want you to get either a poster size or 11 by 17 sheet of paper, or just something that's, where you can clearly do your drawing and show all the things on it. And then talk about it in your writing. You won't be doing a video, although I'm not opposed to you doing a video. So you take your camera, your phone, take a picture of it. Make sure you get it to where it's big enough that we can see the details on it pretty well. So you may have to experiment a little bit with that. But just attach it to your discussion, and it should pop up. A few times I have people struggle with it. If anything doesn't work, you can send it to me, and then I'll send it to everybody in the class. So we can all look at our maps. If we were actually face-to-face, I would have you actually put the maps on a wall, and we go around, talk about them. Now, I know there's a lot of people in this class. I think, well, it depends on what class it is, but it's more than 20. But I want you to look at everybody's map this week. I'm not giving you anything to read. Nothing else to watch, no videos. Just want you to look at everybody's map because they're really quite interesting. I want them to be colorful, so don't scribble with a pencil and then try to describe it, saying, I drew a light pencil drawing of my home's county or the city I visited when I was 9 years old. Please make it nice and colorful. So have fun with this. This is really good for young kids because you can use it with them, and then they get to show something in class. And most people like to draw. Most are embarrassed about their artistic ability, but I am shameless in my lack of artistic ability. So you don't have to worry. Pride is something that you must let it go. Why do I like these? Well, you'll see a little bit on the discussion, and in the assignment, it's the same thing where I talk about it. But I like it because it's a visual way. People like to not talk about themselves. They'd rather show you something and direct their eyes to that map or that drawing. And then they can talk about their lives. And with younger kids, they tend to draw. It's a very honest thing. They tend to draw what they feel is important. With first, second graders who may not even speak much English, if they're ESL students, second language learners, they can draw the map, and you can actually find out things about their neighborhood or their favorite place to go. I can remember hundreds of little special things I've had people draw bullfighting rings if they were from Central America or Mexico. I've had people draw places in Beijing, China, or Shanghai. I've had people draw downtown Tokyo or Kobe. I've had students draw Western Nebraska, and they'd show different it's not just a town. You have a choice. You can draw just a town, but it's not like a road map. The idea is to show important places. So if you're in Western Nebraska, you may show the Ogallala Rodeo. I think it's Ogallala. And then you may show Chimney Rock, which is the example I gave you, and Scotts Bluff, and all kinds of interesting things. And some people are very artistic and others aren't, but you can just simply label them if you're not very artistic. I have a lot of students like freshman students in class, they'll just draw their high school football field, their school, their church, their farm, their ranch, their dogs, their favorite horse, things about Nebraska, but I like it because you don't know what you might find in there. You find all kinds of interesting stories. I've had people show haunted houses, stock car. I had one guy years ago, he had stock car racing places all over Kansas and Nebraska. And I said, well, why do you have all these stock cars? He said, I'm an announcer for stock car races. And so he knows all the stock car racing tracks in Western Nebraska and Western Kansas. Who would have guessed? I would never have thought of that. So those are really interesting things. And it also tells you about their educational background, their cultural background, because you're going to learn in this class that culture is everything about a person. It's what people do for a living. It's what they do for their activities. It's what they make, and it's what they believe. Those three things. So it could be religion, philosophy, it could be making arrowheads in one part of the world, or it could be making computer parts in another, or it could be somebody who carves wooden trunks, somebody who's a baker. So you'll find all this. And what's interesting about these maps is you can use them to decorate the room. And with younger kids, or even really anybody, you could find all kinds of interesting assignments. You could do comparisons. Comparison contrast papers, compare Billy's to Maria's, and what do you see different? So you can get writing assignments, you can get stories out of them, you can get art assignments or projects, maybe they can write poetry. It's no telling, maybe they're really good in music, or they're good at some type of music they know a lot about, and they can talk about that. It's really good for promoting communication, and it's great for promoting community. So that's why we're doing those maps. Now, the syllabus. Syllabus are so dull to talk about, it's just terrible. So now I will point out one thing right off the beginning. I have put in 16 or 15 weeks of assignments. Don't fall in love with this and say, well, Dr. Tracy, you changed the assignment. I said, yeah, I may change the assignment. So don't try to work ahead and say you've got it all done. This is a class where you work week by week. I post assignments week by week. I show you kind of my general game plan, but we're not going to do that every week. No syllabus survives. What do we do in this class? Well, what we're going to do, besides getting introduced to each other, is we're going to spend some time exploring what is culture, the layers of culture. What does the term culture mean? And why do people hate the term multicultural? A lot of people hate that. They get upset. I want to say one thing right now that I haven't said before in this class. We live in very serious times. There's certainly a large number of people that are angry about diversity. Some aspect of it is threatening to them. And that, to some extent, is a natural product of change. Times change. People get upset. It's not distinct to North America or to American politics. It's anywhere in the world there's any kind of change. And so we're going to look at that. There's going to be layers. One of the things I think about is that most people when they think of multicultural, they think about having Spanish class and you have Taco Fridays or maybe it's Taco Tuesdays, Olay the day, you know. But the point is, they think it's just surface stuff. Like we're gonna have a certain food on a certain day. Most people like that. Most people do like certain foods. They love it. I read a thing yesterday that the most popular food in the world is Italian food. I hope I'm saying that right. It's not Italian, but it was Italian food. It said that most of what they have and what they do is exported. In other words, Italians don't eat Mexican dishes or Chinese dishes. They may have some, but they're very satisfied with their own food and consider themselves, the leaders, the central figure, the most powerful food nation in the world, I guess. Of course, we like pizza, we like lasagna, we like pasta. So many things Italian are very popular. United States has got fast food, but most people don't consider that very good. We do have our own food, and so does England, but America, you never see many American or English restaurants. And what I mean by that, I don't mean McDonald's. I mean actual cuisine that's American. Now, they may find Cajun food from Louisiana, or you may find Tex-Mex or basically Mexican restaurants, or French restaurants, or Greek restaurants, or Indian restaurants, Chinese, Thai restaurants are very popular. But you don't really see American, and you certainly don't see English restaurants. You might have a tea room. That's about it. There's even restaurants that serve Russian food or German food, German restaurants. But culture, when it comes to food, we're not the leading nation of the world. We're not considered very cultured in that way. Still, I like mashed potatoes and pork chops and things like that. But, probably not very exportable. So what am I talking about? Sometimes I get off topic, so you can't do much video. You just have to wave at me and say, God, he's insane again. But what we're going to do in this class is we've got a textbook, but we won't read it immediately. It's pretty cheap. I'm trying not to have you buy expensive books, okay? So it's called James Banks. It's not the most exciting read in the world, but what I do is I have you read the chapter, and then I go over and do a little mini lecture over the high points of the chapter. You will love the book, The Middle of Everywhere. I've been using it very consistently for many years. It's written by a lady in Lincoln, Nebraska, who is writing about refugees living in Lincoln, Nebraska. This is particularly useful dealing with culture because she's helping people settle. If you didn't know, Lincoln, Nebraska, among several other places like Minnesota, and I think a place in South North Carolina, and some other places in the United States, in Maine and maybe in Ohio, are very popular for settling refugees. And for instance, Minneapolis has many people from the Somali culture or from Southeast Asia. They call them the Hmong. They're a Laotian mountain tribe that helped us during the Vietnam War. And because the war was lost, they were abandoned, but we did bring many of them back over since they were persecuted for having helped the United States. You may live near or know of people that are refugees. Refugees are not the same as immigrants. A lot of terms there. We don't really deal with them in this class, but immigrants are people that move. They may move with papers or without papers. I don't use the term legal, illegal. I don't like those terms because then people say if they're without documents, then they're criminals and it's a felony. Then we get into a real argument. So let's, okay, well, anyhow, we're going to be looking at places like that. And she talks about them in her book, The Middle of Everywhere. And you'll know the places because she's talking mostly about Lincoln, Nebraska. So if you are a Nebraskan by chance, then you'll know what it means. She also has written books on reviving Ophelia, the life of adolescent girls. She's a counselor, and she's written some very thoughtful and very popular books on the human condition, not only the culture of refugees and immigrants, but also the culture of young women and the life they live. I'm just going to hit on this again. Culture is what people believe, what people do, and what people make or manufacture. So anything dealing with people pretty much is culture. Language certainly is. In that way, the natural world is ordered by our language. So we name things. It's Chimney Rock out in western Nebraska. For those who don't know, there's a place out there. It looks like an old chimney. It's probably the remains of maybe an old volcano or something. And it's not like Devil's Tower. It's not that distinctive. It's actually wearing down. But it's about halfway out in western Nebraska, and the pioneers used to call it Chimney Rock because it was once you reached that, they knew it was a natural marker in going on the Oregon Trail. But everything we know about it is because of the language we attach to it and the lore and the stories about Chimney Rock. Now, in this class, we're going to have discussions every week. The discussions are probably going to be written down in most cases, although I've done Zoom where I get everybody on Zoom. I usually do small groups because you can't get 20 people on one page. But Zoom, if you're not familiar with it, is a means of video conferencing. It's pretty simple. It's what I'm using right now. And I really like it, and it's pretty useful. I'm going to talk fairly quickly because I don't want to make this an hour long. So we're going to have 10 discussion forums, and then we're going to have 2 additional ones that are big ones. And one of the big ones is this first one. It's 25 points. It's the assignment for this Sunday coming up. I want them done by Sunday night, and I want you to comment when you do the discussion forum for this week. I want you to look at all the maps and read everybody's stuff and just make a 1 or 2 word response to every person. What I'm going for is I want you to at least be acquainted with everybody in classes if they were introduced to you. Now, it's going to take a while to do that, but your only other assignment is to do this. You don't have anything else. So you write about yourself, and then everybody reads that, and then we take it from there. If you have any problems, I left you a message on I think on the announcements, but you can call me if it's a problem with the assignment. But if you're having trouble using Canvas, you have to call the help desk. And Canvas is very strongly supported, so you can actually go on your page to the people that run Canvas, which is a platform for online classes, and they will help you. They're very helpful. This semester, you're going to have some major assignments. When I'm writing this, when I give you an assignment for the week, the assignment's going to be on announcement page. It's not going to be under the assignment page. But when I give you a major assignment, which is like I've got down an essay due on September 22nd, I got an interview with a person who deals with diversity in your school or community. That's due October 13th. And then you've got an annotated bib or another type of wild card. I call them wild card. I give you a lot of options so you can do something fun. Maybe make a game. I don't know. Maybe make a video. So I give you 3 major assignments besides the discussion board. Those are going to be under the assignment page. Last year I put it under assignment, and what happened was it opened up every time I put the discussion on, then it was under assignment, then it was under, and it confused people on the grade sheet. So, all right. I've got a fairly light schedule. I know most of you are teaching, so I'm not trying to give you, I don't give you research papers. I know how much you love those. Actually, if you want to write one, I'm more than happy to let you do that. Okay, well, I think I covered everything. I just wanted to hit the high points. I've got a lot of videos. Oh, by the way, you'll be watching a rich source of videos, everything from refugees, immigrants, women's rights, Bully, the movie Bully. I see diversity as kind of everything. Diversity is not just language and ethnicity. Those are really pretty empty. And certainly the term race doesn't mean anything. If you start talking about race, it's basically you're talking skin color, and skin color, overwhelmingly sensitive topic. and it's kind of meaningless. It's just the way you look. You may be totally different than the way you look, your background. And I also talk about disabilities. I talk about history. I've got ethnic notions. I talk about African American situations. I've got some stuff on Native American. Now, near the end of the course in banks, they have some chapters on different major groups: Native American, African American, Hispanic, Asian American. And we may get to those, I'm not sure. But my goal here is not only to expose you to a lot of different types of things, but also to give you tools to actually work with students. And that's why we're doing the culture map first. And then we'll talk about different approaches and things. I like to really hear about your schools too. What's your situation in your school? And do you have a need to talk about different cultural groups? Or because I think that to include them, whether it's in math or chemistry or social studies or music or art, I think that makes a difference, because once a student sees that they have some buy-in, that people believe they matter and that they're part of culture, then they have substance. They have what I call they have an anchor inside the culture, so that I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but they exist and they matter and they're included. Okay, so you don't talk about American history and just leave out, say, Greek Americans. Sometimes you have to make a little extra work, but you can find, if you happen to live in a community where you have a lot of Greek families or Greek background and they have Greek food, for instance, there's or Lebanese or Muslim or Australian or whatever, you can find a lot about that culture and talk about how it's different than American culture and how it enriches American culture. I believe diversity enriches people in the same way that biodiversity makes different animals and plants and life makes it more diverse and more able to survive. Sometimes people say the best animals are the ones that are exposed to the most, have the most experience, the most background, the more diverse background, that they have a richer set of things to draw from. So, having said that, or what little that means, I'll let you look at the videos on here in the syllabus, but I'm going to shut up now because it's getting late tonight. I just wanted you to have this little starting off point. You can email me too. You don't have to call me. Remember, call me between noon and like 8 o'clock at night. I'm sure you're awake somewhere in there. I know I am. Okay, well, thank you, and welcome to class.